The death toll from a dam that burst its banks in the Rift Valley has risen to nearly 50. Scores of people are still missing. The wall of the Patel Dam collapsed on Wednesday night. Its waters swept away homes, power lines and other infrastructure. Thousands of people are displaced. Search and rescue operations are continuing, but ongoing rainfall is hampering the mission. The death toll is expected to rise as emergency services recover more bodies from the mud and the debris. Weeks of heavy rains have seen several dams fill to capacity. Authorities say they will drain overflowing dams. While Kenya has deployed soldiers to help retrieve bodies from the mud following the Nakuru Dam disaster. CGTN's Vauldi Carelse reports now from Nakuru County.
24-year-old Rebecca Kamara was at work when the dam broke. She'd left her 4-year-old son James at home with her mother. When she heard the news of the disaster, she rushed back, only to find water where her house had been. I went to the mortuary. I found my mum, but not my son. There's nothing I can do for now. I can only ask God to help me. The Red Cross is helping her to try to find her boy, but she's holding out little hope that he'll be found alive. I may be alive, but my mom is gone. My son is gone. I'm not lucky. I feel so sad because the place had grown so much, but now we have nothing again. We will never have a good life again. More than 24 hours on from the tragedy, rescuers were still digging in the mud, hunting victims and survivors. The same driving rain that led to this disaster hampering their efforts. Maybe I'll just show you what it looks like now. People are still streaming in here as they try and come to lend a hand. And as that's going on, there's still periodic rains. You can still see water that's flowing. The area we're standing now used to be a maize plantation. Residents here say this area had crops, and now it's just rocks and gullies. Could you maybe tell me what used to be here? I think we can see some of the maize that used to be here.
This place had maize and houses. It was all taken by the water because of this Patel Dam. This Patel guy has been building dams without pillars. This is a sad story. People are really suffering. It's because of the rain that this happened.
Officials say more than 2,000 are homeless. These families will sleep in a school tonight. But after that, they'll be given tents. More rain is forecast here. For people like Rebecca Kamara, the worst has already happened. Vauldi, CGTN, Solai, Kenya.
And we can now cross over to Vauldi. She's joining me on the line from Solai in Nakuru County. Vauldi, what's the latest on the rescue and recovery efforts there? It does seem that the rain continues to hamper those efforts by the various services.
Absolutely, Beatrice. You know, we have the National Youth Service here. We have soldiers from Kenya Defence Forces on the ground. Not only are they still searching for anybody that might be trapped under the mud, they're also making sure that those families who are displaced, more than 500 of them, are given food. Just watching as they're taking loaves of bread and some non-perishable food items to those families. But early this morning, we had a scare. Because there was water rushing down from where the dam is. Now, Solai, the village where we are, or the two villages that were affected by the original dam burst, is about 8 kilometers from where the Patel farm is, where these 3 dams are located. And the water came rushing down. People thought that as the second dam had burst, they had been complaining about the second dam that was leaking as well. This scared the soldiers as well, who sounded the alarm, and everybody had to be evacuated. There were thousands of people getting onto military vehicles, just running out of the villages, out of the fields. Some had been taking their children to some of the remaining schools here. It was just absolute chaos this morning, Beatrice, caused by what we now know is government officials releasing some of the pressure on the second dam. The dam, they want to prevent it from overflowing because of the amount of rains we had overnight again this morning. So they just released some water. It was a controlled release. but this wasn't communicated to the community, and it caused some panic here.
Vauldi, so we now know that over 40 people may have lost their lives. Hundreds of others have been displaced by this dam spillage. So what assistance is currently being provided, though, for the survivors?
Well, I'm actually just looking at some China aid that's being offloaded by the Ministry of Devolution. They released food supplies. About 4 trucks arrived here early this morning. That includes, like I said, non-perishable food items like rice and maize, things that will tide these families over. As I said earlier, they are currently being housed at Salai Secondary School. 2 of the classrooms there have been converted into temporary living quarters for more than 500 that have been affected. But there's definitely fears that this rain could continue and displace many more. They are, of course, just part of nearly 300,000 people that have been displaced by floods in Kenya during this rainy season alone, and that's due to last until at least the end of June. So there are fears that more could be displaced. And as I'm speaking to you, KDF soldiers are still combing this 8-kilometer radius looking for bodies. We do know that at least 2 were retrieved this morning. The woman I spoke to, Rebecca Kamar, is hoping that her son is among them. She'll be heading to the mortuary along with some other families this afternoon.
Vauldi, we have seen in your package there some people being housed in some emergency tents there, and you've mentioned others are being housed in schools, so those are the temporary measures. So what more do we know about the early emergency accommodation plans, and what happens now in the long term, because these people, hundreds of people, have been displaced?
I think that's a key question, Beatrice, is that they won't just need relief for the immediate moment. As Rebecca said, this has been home to hundreds of families. They've built it up. The community had become prosperous, and now there is nothing. They will need long-term relief. They're hoping that government will declare this a disaster area so that more funds can be released to assist this community to rebuild not only their houses. There are acres and acres of farmland that's just buried under mud that can never be retrieved. I spent the morning with some people who are basically just trying to retrieve whatever they can find from the rubble. But again, scares like this morning where you had the possibility of a second dam bursting its banks is making it difficult for people to even try to think to rebuild. Include that in the fact that the groundwater level is so high here that the roads have been completely submerged. Some parts and some areas are completely inaccessible to people to try and recover whatever they might have lost. So this is definitely a disaster area, and definitely some long-term assistance from the government will be required.
All right, Vauldi, Carelse joining us there on the line from Solai in Nakuru County.